Hey everyone, welcome to the July edition of the monthly ContribEx GitHub administration meeting. Just a few things before we start the meeting. All Kubernetes meetings are covered by the same code of conduct, which essentially boils down to please be mindful of what you say in this meeting. And also do note that everything is recorded and be kind to everyone. Awesome. Let me pull up my browser and share my screen. I hope you all can see my screen. So the first agenda item today is from Arno, which is regarding OCI artifact registry support, which essentially is like, can we enable GitHub container registry for our repos? Arno, do you want to elaborate more on this?
Yeah, so basically it was not from me, but more from Sasha. So I think the idea was to allow Subproject to host OCI artifact in the GitHub registries. And currently it's like lockdown. That issue was brought to me during my time as a GitHub admin. So I want to kind of bring this back to have the conversation mostly for different sub-project interests to not use registrygate.io, but use a GCR repo from themselves. And now I think I'm wearing my Git infra hat because I feel like there's value in doing that. And it's kind of helping reduce cost burden on the budget of the project. So I think there's still value on doing that. I don't know what kind of policy, because at the time that issue was brought, there was some issue with permission granularity at the repo level, how we delegate permission to a sub-project or sub-repo or the GitHub team responsible for specific repo to have permission. I saw in the release note of GitHub, there's like improvement about this. So I think we should try to take a look and see what's happening.
I agree from a cost perspective that it would make sense to utilize our free credits or utilize GitHub's plan for open source repos. I think in the Slack thread, there were concerns raised about security of the pipeline since we would be using GitHub Actions. And very recently, we have seen some kind of issues with GitHub Actions where people can maliciously use it. So I think that was the biggest concern of doing this. I understand that this would make it really streamlined, that credentials might not be needed to store at different places because you can use GitHub Action CI and then push to GitHub Container Registry. I think that was the biggest blocker at that point, apart from the permissions model. On the permissions model, I think we have not implemented GitHub's granular permission model yet in our automation. So our automation still uses the maintain write read privileges that we used to use earlier. So certainly we can have a look, but I want to ask you a question, like considering your KTS infra hat.
Yeah.
So how much of an overhead would it be if we host this in registry.kts.io? Since looking at the issue, I feel like these are just binary artifacts, but will be stored in, say, registry.
Not much. It's more like I don't want to say not much. I think currently this is about one sub-project, but if you basically look at all the sub-projects we have in the project, it's kind of a burden. I would say I'll pick a really example. Cluster API for vSphere is want to be promoted in the production registry. So we have this expectation of where any sub-project interest to be popular or try to distribute the control image, we try to use the production registry, which make registry.kits as our central place for literally everything in the project. And we want to I want to basically change that expectation by basically saying, if you have the capability to host your own control registry and promote that without relying on the production registry project, you should doing this. And maybe when you become independent and go directly to CNCF, that's gonna be way more simple for us. That's why I think currently it's fine. I think they have a staging repo, they can promote that's gonna be interesting. But I think long term, I would like basically establish some kind of independence in terms of hosting OCI artifact. Could be MChat, could be binaries, could be control image. Like the OCI distribution specification is evolving to basically support any kind of artifact in a OCI registry. So that's why we should try to basically push that responsibility to the sub-project. I think that's what I'm trying to do here. Like, but if there's a security concern, fine, we host that in the production registry.
Yeah, I think at this point, like we have raised a few concerns to our GitHub PMs about security around actions specifically that we need to resolve first before we allow people to explicitly use actions. And to your point of giving people like alternate registry access, I think like we need to have a conversation with like a joint conversation between KDS Infra and GitHub admins, because this is a very repetitive ask. It keeps on coming, and this is a very legit ask by people. Why can't we use GitHub Container Registry? So I think we should just sit together and formalize a policy. What I feel personally from history is that GitHub administration team has been managing this since time immemorial, but then GitHub packages and actions were some things that came like much later on as features to GitHub. And ideally, like I see them as like community infra kind of stuff, and less of like I see them as compute and storage rather than like community management stuff. So I think KDS Infra should also have some sort of opinion in this.
Yeah, honestly, I'm fine with whatever GitHub admin team want to come with. I mean, we can sit in a meeting, dedicated meeting, have that conversation, even get feedback from GitHub itself, like how maybe there's like a preview feature or there's a later improvement of the API to answer our concern. Because from a security perspective, there might be improvement where we have, I would say, a GitHub token with specific permission allowing write access to the GitHub registry, and make sure we don't have any security hole inside basically the entire project. I think like we can also, I would like basically if like you can reach out to GitHub and basically have that small conversation about, hey, we want to do some things. What are the security concern? Is there like any improvement done recently to answer that question? These kind of things, and sit together, get in front and have this conversation.
Yep. I think that's a good action item to take forward. And for now, to unblock the security profiles operator project, are they using our staging repo? Like the staging registry?
I think they have staging. They have a staging registry, but the problem is our staging registry don't allow to host. We don't currently serve. We can't. It's not we can't. We basically don't currently allow to serve Elm, Shard, or any other OCI artifact through the production registry. I think that's like, yeah, we need to like improve the proxy to allow that.
Got it. So that's another blocker probably.
Yeah, that's another blocker, because until like at the time we were building the new registry, the MSHA were not supported. So I think that's like the one thing we need to improve and have that conversation. But for the staging, yeah, I think they have something like that. I need to check.
Got it. Let's bring up the point again on Slack. I think a lot of other GitHub admins are also not present on this call, and it's better to revive the Slack thread that we had. taking into consideration all the current concerns that we're talking about. Cool. Any questions, comments from others to this point? Cool. Let's go ahead to the next issue by Arnaud. Okta plus GitHub.
Yeah, I'm going to be fast. So we are looking to build a unified authentication platform for the community, and we want to leverage GitHub as an identity provider for that. So I reached out to CNTF to get a license with Okta. They are working. I think it's now accessible by us. We now need to do the integration between Okta and GitHub. So I need to find an issue in Git.org, provide all the detail concern about that. I'm like just giving a heads up. Like currently I don't have any action because we're still in the POC phase, trying to investigate the solution and look what's doable. But later it's something we have to do to establish like centralized authentication. So any community member can leverage a GitHub username to access any platform used by the community. Could be Azure, could be AWS. We want to also integrate with other things like one password, those kind of things. So this is more like a heads up. So keep that in mind.
Cool. I think that would be interesting to see later how it shapes up. Awesome. I think the action item on this is for Arnaud to create an issue, and then we will go ahead with this. Any other questions, comments, and concerns on this point? Cool. That's all. I think we're at the end of agenda, but open call. Anything that you all want to discuss?
I'm good.
I'm good to just update or like a thing you might have seen. Peribulo's change has been merged. Should be interesting now. It will make things much easier.
Yeah, before the end of the call, I was going to give a shout out to Nikita, Priyanka, and you, Madhav, for rallying that along all this time. And I'm pretty happy to see that we have included like teams and repo permissions now. And next step is like, I think once GitHub allows us access to do CRUD on project permissions, I want to also see that happening in the near future.
Yeah,
But
and
yeah,
like it's
great
not just team repo. Like it's really important also because it adds restriction models, right? Like you can't privilege escalation is even by accident is limited now. So really excited that change is merged.
all the good things.
Yeah.
Cool. With that, I'll end the recorded part of the meeting. Thanks everyone for joining today. We will see each other again in August. Till then, have a nice month.